Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about not what's on my board, but what's powering it. Now, about a year ago, I made a video when I purchased my latest power supply, and that's the Voodoo Lab Pedal Power 3 Plus. I made a quick review about it, but I thought we'd go back and revisit it kind of more in depth. So, the Pedal Power 3 Plus, what it is it's a 12 output power supply, all of which are, I think, what they consider a filtered isolated. And really what that is it's the difference in how the transformers work. Now, if you look at the power supplies that were around, say, 10 years ago, even longer, a lot of the number one power supplies, they'd be these big bricks. And that's because they had a big transformer in them. Now, those were awesome because every single output was absolutely isolated. The problem was not only did it take up a lot of space, but say you put it underneath your board, you put a pedal on top of it. If it's a pedal that's kind of sensitive, drives, compressors, some of your modulation pedals, it would actually create some noise in the circuit. Now, these new ones, they do absolutely still sell those, but the new style of power supply that's really popular right now is these filtered isolated. And one of the things that's really cool on them is they run a what's called a switch mode power supply. And so, I mean, I'll never use the feature, and that's not why I bought it. But if I was to say, for whatever reason, I need to fly to Europe or somewhere that's running on 240 volts, all I need is the corresponding IEC cable. The transformer in this power supply will actually switch it between anywhere actually from 100 volts to 240 volts. So it actually has a wide range. I know a lot of people are firm believers, in the US we have 115 or 120. That's not the case. It's actually, depending on where you are, how old your wiring is, you're anywhere from 100 volts to 130 volts. And probably you're going to average a little bit below 115. And so that's actually one of the really cool things about that power supply is that you get clean power no matter really what it's feeding it. The other nice thing is it doesn't care what's on top of it. These filtered power supplies, because it doesn't have the big transformer in it anymore, you're not going to find a whole lot of issues where your pedals are picking up noise because they're on top of them. Now, again, that wasn't a huge concern of mine. Most of what I have on top of it are going to be, my tuner and my time-based effects. And most of those are actually not big on generating noise. The Afterneath being a little bit of an exception, but it is a V1 and it's been on my board a long time. And I don't know, it's just getting old. Maybe I need to take it apart, clean it. I don't know what the deal is there. So getting back to the power supply itself, it has 12 outputs. Now, out of those 12 outputs, 10 of which are capable of giving you 500 milliamps at 9 volts. Now, I say capable. That doesn't mean that, it can and will push that. But the neat thing about current is, versus voltage, your pedals are only going to use as much current as they need. So most of your drive pedals, although they may even say that they're 100 milliamps, honestly, you're probably closer to 10. And so, number one, what that means is that every one of these channels, if you need to daisy chain and you have pedals that work well together, you can do that. Number two, the biggest reason for me is that my pedals that take more, my delays, my reverbs, the stomp is a special story. Those I don't have to worry about where they're plugged in. Like I said, every channel on that, at least 10, well, the first 10. There's a couple other channels and we'll get into that, but they are all capable of 500 milliamps, and there's not a lot of pedals that are 9 volt that are going to run more than 500 milliamps. And so I'm pretty safe. And that's whether I'm running my TC Electronic, if I'm running, say, a Strymon, like one of the big guys, the Big Sky, or the, oh goodness gracious, what is it called? The Timeline, their delay pedal. It will run those no problem, and I don't have to worry about what those go into. Now, like I said, it's a 12 output power supply, and so those other two are switchable between 12 volt and 9 volt. Now, in those two channels, in 12 volt, it is 500 milliamps. In 9 volt, they are capable of 200 milliamps. So, honestly, you're still good. I mean, most of your pedals. Again, most of your pedals are going to be below 100 milliamps. So you know you're good. You know you have a lot of capability to go ahead and throw in daisy chain cables, again, provided that you have pedals that play well together. There are pedals that don't, and that becomes a noise generation issue, and that's not something that you want to deal with. Now, beyond that, beyond those 12 outputs, they have 2 outputs that are for their X-Link. And now those are, they can be their own thing. So the X4 and the X8, you can buy its own transformer to go with it. It's like a laptop transformer. And it can be its own standalone 4-channel or 8-channel power supply, and they're actually, they're relatively cheap for what they are. But what they can also do is they can expand those 12 channels by 8 channels or by 4 channels. Now, there's a couple different variations. For instance, the X4 has an 18 volt version. So if you have a bunch of boutique pedals that run 18 volt, well, not a bunch. If you have 4, then you can run the X4. And the X8 is going to give you 8 additional 9 volt outputs at 500 milliamps, but those are shared. And don't take me on my word on this. I'm pretty sure the main unit is not a shared. It might be, even if it is, it's not really going to matter that much. But the X8 gives you 2000 mA total, and it's taking that out of a 12 volt 1 amp input, but it gives you, again, 8 additional 500 mA shared 9 volt outputs. And so, obviously they're not all going to be 500 mA, but again, your pedals only take what they need. So if you need to run that expansion, and you have, one pedal that's 450 and a bunch of other ones are 100s, it doesn't care. It doesn't care. It's as long as you are under 2000 mA total, it doesn't care. The X4 is going to be 4 outputs, obviously. You have 1,000 total mA on the standard expander. And all of those are capable of giving you, again, 500 mA. So now, one of the biggest reasons that I went with this one was the size. And we're going to kind of get into that here in a little bit, because that is kind of a big deal. It's not for everybody. I mean, when you're running a big board, really, the size doesn't really necessarily matter. This isn't a big board. This is what, a 21 inch wide board by 14, 16. I don't remember. It's not a very big board. And so I didn't want something that was going to be gigantic underneath there. And so that was one of my biggest things, was I wanted the most bang for my buck, but I also wanted it in a smaller form factor. And that power supply is a smaller form factor. Now, the other big thing that I considered when I was looking into this is that it used a very standardized cable system. Now, I had before that a cheaper, I want to say it was like a K-line power supply that went out. It actually caused some damage to a couple of pedals. And so that was kind of a thing. But, I had all those cables, and the cables were fine. There's nothing wrong with them. So that was one of the things is, I didn't want to have to buy all new, proprietary cables for a different power supply. I mean, yeah, your power supply, whatever you buy, it's going to come with a bunch of cables. But that other power supply, it was, I think it was like a 5 output, and I had to daisy chain some. And so I had some cables that I thought I might use, and it is what it is. So the other ones that I was kind of thinking about at the time was the Fender Engine Room 12, the Chalks DC7. They also have the DC10. DC7's the same price range. DC10's a little bit more. The Strymon Zuma, the True Tone One Spot Pro CX6. Again, it's not quite as big. And, as I was kind of researching stuff in the making of this video, I noticed that Gator Frameworks actually is making a power supply now. And theirs is the GTR Power 12. And so, the main reasons why I picked the Voodoo Lab is the size, the ease of hookup. I mean, knowing that out of the main outputs, any one of them is going to give me 9 volts at 500 mA. Super simple. I don't have to think about it. The less I have to think about, the better. It is what it is. And, honestly, the X-Link was cool. Now, there are, out of the other brands, there are several others that do have expansions. Namely, the Chalks definitely does. The True Tone definitely does. I don't remember if the Strymon does or the Fender, but again, there are others that do have that expansion. And the other thing is, I know Voodoo Labs. I have buddies that have them. I've had experience with them. They're quiet. They are good power supplies. And so, between the reputation, the size, and the fact that, if I needed to use any of my daisy chain cables, they would work on that. I was like, you know what? That is the way to go. So really, when it comes to why I didn't choose any of the others, the big one for me, as far as the Chalks went, was the proprietary cables. Chalks makes a good system, and I believe I'm pronouncing that right. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. but they make a good system. They're a little bit more confusing than this one is. And that's because they have switches on it. You know, you're switching between 9, 12, 18 volts. The outputs have different currents. Which isn't unusual. I mean, you know, for a long time, just about anything you got, you know, you'd have different currents for the different channels. But you know, that was a kind of a big thing. And the other big deal is I wouldn't get as many outputs for the same price. I would have to go to their expansion. And I mean, really, when you're looking at it for best bang for your buck, that was kind of a thing for me. Fender actually has that engine room 12. It's probably your most direct competitor. It has a lot of the same features. The thing is, it's big. It's really big. The form factor is gosh, it's almost double. And again, that was a thing for me. I wanted it to fit nicely underneath this pedal board. And so that was kind of turn off for me. Strymon, while it's the same price, it just doesn't have enough outputs. And as far as I could tell, they didn't have the expansions. It is what it is. Same with the True Tone. The One Spot CX or CS6, that's their kind of flagship. Smaller form factor, switch mode power supply, and it just your 6 outputs. You know, I'm not running a lot of pedals, and yeah, I could probably daisy chain, but your 6 outputs. And honestly, you know, this is how I set this board up, but I'm not stopping there. I've got pedals, and I've got things that are missing off this board that I'm kind of missing. And, you know, and I run out of DSP on the HX Stomp. And honestly, when I get the chance, I'm going to get a bigger board. That's all there is to it. And so, yeah, that's not going to work for me. And then the Gator, you know, again with the size. And beyond that, there again, it's, you know, you've got a couple high current, a couple low current, you know, it is what it is. But the Gator's a big one. Yeah, it's another big one. So when it really came down to it for me, and I want to stress that for me, because when it comes down to it, all of these other power supplies that do switch mode and you know, they're hybrid, they're quiet, they're all good. There's nothing wrong with any of them. What it came down for me was a couple of things. It's the size, the number of outputs, and the ease of use. Ease of use being almost number one. Honestly, I always list that last, but honestly, that is the most amazing thing about that. The Pedal Power 3 is that you don't have to think too much about it. You plug all your pedals in, away you go. It's not a big thing. So honestly, after a year of running this thing, I mean, it is what it is. It's a no-nonsense power supply. It does everything I want it to do. It's got a small form factor. It's expandable. Again, every single output, normal output, is high current. And honestly, the 9 volt at 200 milliamps on the other two, beyond your really big Strymon pedals. I mean, you're not running into a lot that really cares about that. On top of that, you can go to Voodoo Labs website. You can get it off Sweetwater, I'm sure. You can get it off Amazon. There is a cable. Now, I do have a gripe about this cable. But what this is it doubles the current. And so instead of 500 milliamps, you have a 1 amp signal going to the HX Stomp. That will adequately power your HX Stomp. And so I can run that on my pedal board. I don't need their special power supply, which sucks. It's so bad. It is so bad. It's a giant wall wart with a short cord, and it's horrible. But I don't need it because they supply this cable. Now, again, I have gripes. Voodoo Labs, seriously, why isn't this 90? Honestly, why is this not a 90 degree? Why is it straight barrel, straight cord? Now, you might think, why is that a big deal? Well, this cheap pedal board goes into a gig bag. And when you pick that gig bag up, the whole pedal board slides against the back. So this thing's sticking straight out. I got to unplug this thing every time. If it was a 90 degree, I could secure it in place. No big deal. It's not going to pinch the cords. It's not going to have an issue. Voodoo Labs, please offer this in a 90 degree. Honestly, it can't be that hard. But that's my only gripe with that. It's honestly actually really cool. It's made for the Voodoo Lab power supplies. As long as you're on those high current channels, it actually supplies plenty enough current for the HX Stomp. And, this thing works without a hitch. It's good. I absolutely love the way that this is all set up. Would I recommend the Voodoo Labs Power Plus 3? Absolutely. 150%. Absolutely. It is a great power supply. There's not a downside to it. There really isn't. I will go ahead and provide links to not only this power supply, but all the ones that I've mentioned below, because honestly, if they fit your needs, it doesn't matter. I mean, whichever one, they're all good. There's not a single one that I mentioned in this video that's not good. This is the one that I chose for me personally. So I'm going to go ahead and provide links through Sweetwater to all of the power supplies mentioned below. If you guys could go ahead and like and subscribe, that'd be amazing. That helps the channel out so much, way more than you ever know. Comment, please comment. The more ideas I get from you guys, the better content I can make. And with that, I'll see you guys next time.